Sunday, February 16th, 2025, the day of my 27-hour flight from Cleveland, Ohio to Adelaide, South Australia. This flight route went from Cleveland to LAX to Melbourne to Adelaide and cost $1,100 USD one way. I got my luggage all ready to go this morning and said goodbye to my cat, who I think was mad at me for leaving. My checked bags ended up being 61 pounds each, which I thought they would weigh more than that. And I was pleased with the quality of my Bay's luggage. It helped me fit so much stuff, which I needed because I was moving to the other side of the world indefinitely, so I brought as much as I could. My flight wasn't until 6 p.m. that day, so I anxiously waited around all day. You can see there was quite a bit of snow that morning. We loaded my luggage into the car, and my parents took me to the airport around 2:45 p.m. I was 3 hours early, which was good because I had some technical issues checking my luggage. Again, the Bay's luggage is wheeling so well, and I'm happy that I spent the extra money on quality luggage. My flight to LAX was delayed over an hour, so I had a lot of time to sit around the airport and cry because it was so weird saying goodbye to my family and really sad. I got this tofu bowl and coffee, which I saved till the last minute so I wouldn't get hungry on my flight, especially because I knew that I wouldn't have time in between this one and my next flight. So remember when I said my flight was supposed to leave at 6 p.m.? It ended up leaving at 7:45 p.m. and I only had a 2-hour layover for my next flight originally because that was the only timing options for United when I booked. I've had this issue with United before where they give you close layover times and then have flight delays and cause you to miss your next flight. So I had 5 hours on this flight to LA and the next one was 16 hours. And the next flight to Melbourne, if I did miss that one, was 24 hours later. So I was a little bit nervous, but there's nothing I could do. So I just kind of mentally prepared for other options if that happened. We were meant to land at 10 p.m. and the boarding for my next flight to Melbourne closed at 10:20 p.m. The flight attendants announced that there were people who needed to make their next flight to China and Australia. So luckily people were nice enough to let us pass and the plane pulled up to the gate right across from my flight to Melbourne. I made it to the gate 8 minutes before boarding was meant to close. I was so relieved. And in my experience, international flights usually leave on time compared to domestic flights, which frequently experience delays. So I was not surprised that this flight wasn't delayed. Because I didn't get time in between these two flights, as soon as I had the chance, I went to the bathroom to freshen up and change, which is essential in feeling comfortable during a long flying experience like this, with not just the time sitting on planes, but also all of the waiting and walking around time and sweating and lugging around luggage in between all of that. I learned from the last time that I flew to Australia what I would want accessible in my bag, so I packed this little kit with face wash, lotion, deodorant, and a toothbrush. I washed my armpits in the sink, I changed, and I did my skincare all with bottled water, which I did think through in advance because airplane water is disgusting. I don't always eat a vegetarian diet, but I do get freaked out by eating eggs and meat on planes, so I requested a vegetarian option when I booked my flight, which was a slay because I got my food first every time, and I didn't have to watch the food cart as it came down the aisle, all hungry and like a fiend. I watched Amelia Perez while I ate, and I really liked that movie. Then I settled in for my night's sleep. I purposely stayed up so that I could fall asleep for hours on this flight, one, to pass the time, but also to have some sort of sleep schedule entering Australia. But I'm not too strict about that as far as like what time I fall asleep to keep the timing correct. I just want to sleep in general. I woke up 6 hours later, which I felt like was an accomplishment, kind of a full night's sleep, and that meant I only had 9 hours left on this flight. I always find a long flight like 16 hours to actually be better than a 5-hour flight because I know I'm going to be there for so long that I can really settle in, and I almost feel like the time passes faster for me. The last 5 months of my life were honestly really hard and emotional. I went from saying goodbye to friends in Australia and my home on Magnetic Island to a long distance relationship and heartbreak, to spending quality time with my family, some of the best quality time I've had in years with them, waiting for my visa, being unsure of my future, and then saying goodbye to my family again. And knowing that I would be starting this new phase of my life completely on my own when all I want is a place where I'm settled and to have a community, because that's just where I am in my life. So you can say that this is the most I've had to deal with all at one time in my entire life, and it was not a smooth road. And I'm just really happy that I was with my family during this time. Like, that honestly could not have been better for me, and I really appreciate them for that. And while being on this flight was exciting, of course, because I was finally going back to Australia, I mostly felt anxious to get through it because I just wanted to get through this time of my life. And that's completely different than over a year ago when I felt pure excitement to be flying to Sydney. Okay, I watched some Sex and the City, then I did more skincare to feel refreshed. I see girls on TikTok do this, so I wanted to try it, and it was great. Also, I upgraded to Economy Plus on this flight for more legroom for $114, which was worth it because it's already like an $800 flight. I thought it was nighttime this entire time up to this point, but I later realized that there's a button to adjust the tint on the windows, so what I thought was the moon was actually the sun. And we were getting so close to Melbourne, I couldn't actually believe that I was making it back to this country and continent after 5 months of waiting. A lot of my family say that they can't imagine doing this flight, but I really don't think that it's bad when you actually do it. I chatted with the Australian man next to me as we waited to deboard the plane, and he complimented my Bé's luggage. I swear I'm not getting paid by Bé's to say all this, I'm just obsessed. When I got on this flight, I already felt refreshed by the amount of mullets I saw and Australian accents that I heard. And also, Australians just have a friendly and calm presence, which reminds me why I'm moving here. Everybody just seems so chill and happy. And I saw why when I saw the sun and felt the warm air for the first time again. I hadn't been in the Melbourne airport for 6 months, and I forgot how nice Australian bathrooms are. I didn't realize this next step because last time I flew to Australia, my first entrance into the country was Sydney, where I was living and where I exited the airport. But because I had a domestic layover in Australia, I had to collect my checked bags, go through customs, and go through checking my bag and security all over again in an hour to make it to my next flight. I was worried I would miss this next flight, but also it was so close to Adelaide that if I really had to wait for the next flight out, it wouldn't have been that bad. But security was really fast, so I had time to eat and chill before my next flight. Also, I need somebody to explain to me how luggage works with planes, because I genuinely thought, because of the time that my last flight came in before the next Melbourne flight took off, I was like, there's no way my checked bags are going to make it on to this flight, right? But they were there, so that's great. I was just surprised. Anyway, I also forgot that for some reason it's harder to come by water stations in public in Australia. I know this is a weird observation, but I found this one by my gate and it was smooth boarding, except for when my worst fear ever happened, because my carry-on was so heavy that when I tried to lift it up to the storage above my seat at this point, I had done it before, but I was so tired at this point. I was raising it up really slowly, and then I missed the bin and it fell down onto someone sitting in front of me, and I felt so bad, but they were so nice about it and they helped me put it up there. I was surprised that Qantas didn't weigh the carry-on bags, because a lot of domestic airlines do, and there's a 7-kilogram limit, which is 15 pounds, and that is just the weight of my tote bag. Anyway, this was only an hour and 20-minute flight, and I was so excited to see the sun in Adelaide, especially going from winter to summer, and I can't wait to share my first adventures in Adelaide. Okay, bye!